So now let's look at statement 14. Statement 14 to statement 17, on the surface, on the surface, it looks like it is talking about what other Tibetan Buddhists are often talking about on the surface. And by that I mean specifically in the scholastic tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, which was inherited by the Tibetans from the Indian Nalanda scholastic tradition. So in Nalanda, as I was describing last time, there were a lot of very systematic, organized, in a good way. Don't misunderstand me. I really think that was necessary for the Buddhist tradition. For one thing, for clarity of understanding of the material, that is important. Then another thing is to be able to kind of speak intelligently about the tradition to people who are not part of the tradition. You have to understand that Buddhism existed among other similarly very strong and sophisticated spiritual traditions in India. So we know like Hinduism, which, by the way, I say again and again, Hinduism is really not one religion. It's only more in the modern time that Hindus have, think of themselves as one religion. But actually, there are so many different types of Hinduism. The idea that Hinduism is one religion is fairly recent. For sure, during the development of all these traditions in India, Hinduism wasn't one religion. There were many traditions. So all the many traditions of Hinduism have developed their own systems. Jainism has developed their own system. Then there were traditions that no longer exist today. They also developed their own traditions. Traditions that were current during Buddha's time and no longer current during Nalanda's time, right? And so this scholastic tradition was very strong and emphasizing, analytical development of analytical sharpness. And so that was an important development in Indian Buddhism. So within that context, so there's a lot of debates and discussions about, how does the level of the sravakas measure against the level of pratyekabuddhas, measured against the level of bodhisattvas, and bodhisattvas of the different levels, arhats or sravakas on the different levels. Then on top of that, how does Madhyamaka measure with Cittamatra and, within the Mahayana tradition? So there's a lot of debate in terms and discussions, not just debate like, arguing, not arguing, debate and arguing is two different things. So there were principled discussions and debates about, which tradition can take you to which point and this and that, all of that. So on the surface, it seems like the statement starting from 13, actually. 13 is in some ways kind of an overview. 13, remember, it says all systems of tenets obscure the truth. So 13 we need to appreciate, like according to Jigten Sungren, the truth as in, reality, the fundamental nature of all things. As much as these tenet systems were developed as ways to help us to finally see this fundamental nature, being that these tenet systems are reliant on words, phrases, sentences, concepts, then at a certain point, they still have their limitations. So with that setting the stage, you can say, here is Sherab Jungne, right? Not Jigten Sumgun. Sherab Jungne arranged this, right? So he sets up the stage with statement 13. Then 14, 15, 16, 17, he's going to go into the details. When he goes into the details, giving the statements, different statements made by Jigten Sumgun in 14, 15, 16, 17. Again, on the surface, it looks like Jigten Sumgun is engaging in the same discussion that is going on among the scholarly academic study. But here you can see that again and again, Jigten Sumgun's interest isn't in that area. Only superficially, it seems as if he is joining that discussion, joining that debate about which system is higher than which system has to come before which system. In fact, he is not really interested in that discussion. So he wants us, once again, to look at all these categories, all these levels that are described, to be, more importantly, every individual's process of maturing their understanding, of getting closer and closer to seeing the fundamental nature. That is not about, this group or that group, which group has a more refined view, which group has a less refined view, all of those debates. But because his statements, uses these vocabulary and seemingly is seemingly engaging in this scholarly speculation, then, of course, it invited debate later on when these statements were published. Because when others look at this statement, they think immediately, oh, this Jigten Sumgun guy is getting into these scholarly discussions. And then when they think that, and when they think that and they look at his statement, they say, oh, he's so uneducated. He says things that we already debated and show that this is a wrong way of thinking based on those scholarly standards. Then, of course, Drigong people feel a need to defend Kyopa Rinpoche. My limited understanding is almost I feel like, Drigong people should have just said, no. We are comparing apples and oranges. Yes, both are fruits, but we're comparing apples and oranges here. Now you could say, why then did Jigten Sumgun need to use vocabulary like this? Because, again, you can imagine, he's walking around and some of his monks are getting, excited by these debates because it was a very vibrant community during his time. People came and went to seek teachings, to seek instructions. Some stay long time, some stay short time, coming and going and coming and going, But, so you can imagine Jigten Sumgun kind of overhearing some monks getting animated and, well, this this way of looking, well, sravakas are lacking this, and pratyekabuddhas are lacking that, and bodhisattvas have this, and no, sravakas have that, and oh no, Cittamatra has this, oh, Sautrantika has that, and you can see like him kind of just dropping in and saying, you guys are getting lost now. The true meaning of the sravaka attainment is this. The true meaning of the essence of what Cittamatra is talking about is this. The essence of what Madhyamaka talking about is this. Can you see this in your own development? To me, that's where he's taking us. Not in these abstract. I mean, again, the abstract work is good, to develop a strong, robust intellectual tradition, which I think, especially in the West, many of us got attracted to Buddhism because of, not all, but many of us are kind of impressed by this way of explaining that seems really wow, because maybe we grew up, we never heard these things. We never heard our own spiritual traditions taking such a robust intellectual, not like esoteric intellectual, but convincing explanation. Instead of being told, just believe, just have faith. Sometimes Mahamudra can sound like that, just have faith, have devotion. And sometimes Mahamudra can sound like that, So I think if we just start with Mahamudra telling people devotion to the Guru, devotion, you're like, I already spent years listening to my mom talking about devotion to Jesus, and that doesn't make any sense to me. What's the difference now, devotion to the Guru? Probably most of us did not come to Buddhism because we heard, oh, devotion to the Guru, devotion to the Guru. Oh, okay, yeah, I'm going to have devotion to the Guru instead of Jesus now. Okay? It's because we heard about, the Four Noble Truths. Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Then we're like, oh, and the Buddha said, the Four Noble Truths can be explained in this way, and this way, and this way. And that's all, part of that intellectual rigor. So again, as Sobich said in the notes, Jigten Sumgön is not dismissing completely the importance of clear thinking, not just clear seeing. Everybody agrees clear seeing is where we're headed. We should be headed towards, but clear thinking. So Jigten Sumgön doesn't attack clear thinking, but he does always pull his students back to, don't get too far in this thinking business. Because at a certain point, all this thinking will get you trapped in thoughts and concepts. Likewise, he also points out, don't get caught up in meditative experiences. Even if negative meditative experiences are necessary to give rise to understanding. We use the word realization a lot, Sometimes it sounds like, heaven. But what we're talking about, understanding. Understanding that will change our hearts, change the way we relate to the world, change the way we relate to things happening or not happening. That's what we say, we call realization. In simple English, understanding that arises from the heart, that changes the way we kind of live our lives. So experiences, meditative experiences, are necessary, but they too can become traps. Just like thinking. Clear thinking is necessary, but if you get caught up in that, then you will get trapped. And because many of us, again in the West, many of us got attracted to Dharma via clear thinking, so then we have to be more careful there. So many of us, so many of us mistake intellectual understanding for the true food, the true nourishment of Dharma. Then when suffering turns up, which inevitably it will turn up, when things don't go right, we fall apart. We lose faith in the Dharma. We say, oh, I thought, I knew all these things, but it's not helping, Then when we might become discouraged and even nihilistic and think, oh, Dharma doesn't work. It's not that Dharma doesn't work. It's that we have only mastered the menu, but we never ordered the food. We have mastered the recipes, but we have never cut an onion. And don't know, when people talk about crying when they cut onions, it's like, that's really strange. So 14, 15, 16, 17, yeah? So he begins here. People claim that the systems of tenets of the sravakas are not true. So these would be Mahayana partisans. Yeah? They are so excited by their Mahayana greatness, the great vehicle. Then, because some sutras do, Mahayana sutras obviously, do have the Buddha saying, seemingly very harsh things about sravakas. The sravakas are the hearers, what sometimes people call arhats. But here, they're very careful to use the word sravaka and not arhat, because Buddha is also arhat. So sravaka are those who follow the quote-unquote Hinayana system. So some, misunderstand the meaning of the sutras when the Buddha seems to be speaking harshly about sravakas. In some sutras, Buddha says things like, the sravakas are worse than murderers. So then people look at that and say, oh, yeah, sravakas are terrible, It's like, no, that's not what Buddha means. Yeah. So some of these people, get so carried away, then they say, as for the Shravaka tenet system, so again, within this Nalanda context, there are those two systems called Sautrantika and Vaibhashikas. Neither of these traditions currently exist in the world. This is historical in terms of when Nalanda tradition talks about the followers of Sautrantika, followers of Vaibhashika. If you're curious about these things, Vaibhashika are historically related to what we today call Theravada. They're not exactly the same, but they share a common kind of origin point. Vaibhashikas and current day Theravada. But of course, current day Theravada are not Vaibhashikas. But if you want to say, what are the Theravadins closest to in terms of these four Nalanda articulated four systems of tenets, for general, Sautrantika, Vaibhashika, Sautrantika, Cittamatra, and Madhyamaka, then it's closest to the Vaibhashika. Oh, so I want to give you an anecdote, tell you a story. So some years back, Our Holiness Drigong Chesang was invited when he was in Ladakh. He was invited by the main kind of center of learning run by the Tibetan government with support from the Indian government, called the Central Tibetan Higher Studies or something like that. They have branches all over India. And so they have one in the capital of Ladakh, in Leh. And so there was a graduation ceremony where these monks and geshes and khenpos are graduating. To kind of do some, almost you could say, exhibition, that the monks debate. And they're debating these tenet systems. On the basis of these tenet systems, they were debating. So, of course, they chose the best debaters to do this demonstration. Then at the end, there is the ceremony with the certificate and all of that. And so His Holiness was the guest of honor. And then they asked His Holiness to speak to the graduates. So His Holiness said, okay, I will, if you want me to speak, I will speak. And so he spoke, And so he congratulated them and said, you have done a good job in this curriculum. But I want to say a few words about the curriculum as well. He says this curriculum is pretty good. Yeah. But you should know that, when you talk about Vaibhashikas and Sautrantikas, and also when you talk about Vedanta, which is the non-Buddhist, because the debate also involves debating non-Buddhists. And when you talk about Vedanta, when you talk about, the various, Hindu systems, you should know that these people don't exist anymore. He says, what you call, what in our text identify as the beliefs or the principles of like this or that school, even if they exist today, they don't think this way anymore. Because just as we have developed, they too have developed. So you're debating, people who lived 1,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago. So your debate is impressive if you were debating those people who lived 1,500 years ago. And he says, today, we have no understanding what Christians believe or Muslims believe, or even other Buddhists believe. So he says, I think we should update our curriculum. He says, what's the point of, effectively debating traditions that don't exist anymore? Then recently somebody told me that His Holiness, he's in Taiwan now. Seems like the safest place on earth as far as COVID goes. So he's in Taiwan now, and so he's been going to the bookstores a lot. And he bought a book, in Chinese. He can read Chinese very well. And it's a book on like I don't know exactly what book, but it's basically about other religions. So he started reading, and then he told someone, he said, I'm going to translate some of these into Tibetan. He says, why? He says, I want to show the geishas and the kempos, that other people have logic also. And their logic is as strong, if not better than our logic. He says they are so proud, of their logic, And he says, look, other people have logic too, and it's very reasonable too. So he says, if you want to say, oh, everything based on logic, we can this, and that. He says, logic can be argued, in many ways. Logical systems are based on culture. So anyway, I would say, this is sort of part of, Gongchik's influence, I would say, So people claim that the systems of tenets of the sravakas are not true, that they are erroneous, they're wrong. Here Jiten Sumgen says, the sravakas too perceive one part of the original state of the fundamental nature. The sravakas too perceive a part of this fundamental nature. Babki Neluk. Babki Neluk, from the statement 1, chapter 1, Chukun Shisam Babki Neluk Den. Shisam, Chukun, all dharmas. Chu, dharma. Kun, all dharmas. She and Bab, they are sometimes interchangeable, as in they are all referring to fundamental nature. She and Bab. So in that, remember, in that first statement, it has this odd expression, the she or Bab of all phenomena. The she or Bab of all phenomena. So it sounds like, on the surface, right? Remember, I don't know if you remember this discussion, but you should remember this discussion because this is a very important statement. Statement 1 of chapter 1. She is like a fundamental nature, and Bab can mean fundamental nature, but it also has the meaning of coming down, playing out. It's the verb that is used for rain coming down from the sky. Rain is bopping. If we were to change that into English, rain is bopping this morning, coming down. But bop also has the meaning of fundamental nature. So I think Sobish chose to translate she and bop as just, the same word, the same meaning. So his translation of statement 1, chapter 1 is, all the teachings of the Buddha reveal the original state of the fundamental nature. Original state is Neluk here. Original state is Neluk. Fundamental is she or Bab. She or Bab. But she and Bab sometimes actually is referring to, when you look at this direction, when you look at the essence direction, it's this way. When you look at how that essence plays out, it is that way. So Bab is how this essence plays out. And the way essence plays out is no different from the way the essence is. Anyway, here, it doesn't matter because this is not so much about this fundamental nature. The point is here, the main point here is, Kyoba Rinpoche says, no, sravakas, those who follow the Hinayana way of training, they are not wrong, because they do have partial realization of the fundamental nature. So Chodra, to abandon samsara, complete realization is needed. So here it's saying, sravakas have partial realization, not complete realization, but they do have partial realization. The arising of complete realization depends on the Buddha's teachings. Because they perceive, as in sravakas perceive, perceive part of the original state of the fundamental nature by practicing according to the Buddha's teachings, so sravakas too understand the solid outer objects as unestablished, the minute particles as partless, and the inner perceiving mind as impermanent and momentary. Based on understanding this, they abandon samsara through an unattached gnosis. So by understanding these points, that outer objects are unestablished, the minute particles are partless. This is talking about dharmas. Minute particles are partless. And the inner perceiving mind as impermanent and momentary. In that way, they turn away from confused existence. Since they thereby realize the original state of the fundamental nature of these two aspects, which is that outer objects and inner mind, this turns into the cause of the four results of virtuous practice, which is the four fruits of Shravaka: stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, and finally Arhat. Or the realization of pratyekabuddhahood, and finally supreme awakening. So what Chodra is saying here is, like, according to Kyopa's understanding, or according to the Kyopa's way of explaining, Sravakas, they arrive at a genuine understanding of the fundamental nature. But from there is more to be realized. Then you have to realize deeper, which is to arrive at what the pratyekabuddha, what they understand. Then from there, to go even further to supreme awakening. As it is said, the sphere of reality of the Sravakas, the Dharmadhatu of the Sravakas, and my sphere of reality and my Dharmadhatu match to the point of sameness. And there's no difference insofar as Dharmadhatu is concerned. So the complete liberation of the Sravakas and my complete liberation are also the same. So the Buddha taught the so-called Hinayana teachings, and they cannot be erroneous. The Buddha doesn't teach anything that is mistaken. So what the Sravakas realize and what the bodhisattvas realize is not two different matters. It's the same matter in degrees, different extent of realization. Yeah. So the Madhyamaka Avatara says, the Exalted One said that any phenomenon that is deceptive is false. Everything conditioned is deceptive phenomena, therefore they are false. Any deceptive phenomenon is, if any deceptive phenomenon is false, about what is it deceptive? This teaching by the Exalted One completely reveals emptiness. So, when we understand emptiness, it also means we understand how appearances are deceptive. Furthermore, the Ratnavali says, if emptiness, the great virtue of the Buddha, is seen like that through reasoning, how could what is taught in the Mahayana and the other not be equal for the wise? So Ratnavali by Nagarjuna is saying, so whether in the Mahayana or in the other, meaning the non-Mahayana systems, insofar as what is achieved when you really take on the training, in the end it is understanding emptiness, which is understanding fundamental nature, the original state of the fundamental nature. So here, right, Gyopa Rinpoche is telling us, don't get carried away, in thinking that, oh, arhats, or sravakas, they are misguided. No, they're not misguided. 415, the notes in Sobish, it's you can read that yourself. 415, people claim that sravakas and pratyekabuddhas do not see even the first bodhisattva stage. So then there are some who maybe won't say, our sravakas and pratyekabuddhas are wrong, as in the first statement is addressing. Here, maybe they're more generous. They say, yeah, they're not wrong, but, compared to the first stage of bodhisattvas, these arhats and these sravakas and pratyekabuddhas, Shravaka Buddha and Pratyeka Buddha, they are, still, they don't even get close to the first bodhisattva stage. So here, Gyopa Rinpoche says, up to the sixth bodhisattva stage, the realization is the same. So Shravaka Buddhas and Pratyeka Buddhas. Shravakas are actually called Shravaka Buddhas. So there are, in older sources, they say there are three types of Buddhas: Shravaka Buddhas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and Samyasang Buddhas. Samyasang Buddha is like Buddha Shakyamuni. Samyasang means complete and perfect Buddha. Pratyeka Buddha means solitary Buddhas, as in they realize their level of attainment without relying on the teachings of, the explicit teachings of others. Then Shravaka means hearer, listener. They are the ones who listen to the Buddha's teachings and achieve their realization. So Shravaka Buddhas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and Samyasang Buddhas. So here, Gyopa Rinpoche says, actually the realizations of Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, they are the equivalent of what bodhisattvas realize when bodhisattvas arrive at the sixth bodhisattva stage. The commentary and the notes for 415, I think, again, you can read on your own. Because here, really, they get into like objections by others. Two things. One is it gives you background on how you could say Mahayana propaganda have prejudiced Mahayana people into thinking, sravakas and pratyekabuddhas are like, wrong. So here, basically, both Chodrak's commentary and then in more explicit way, Sobish's notes will explain why these people think this way. Because there are passages, in the Mahayana sources that seem that can be interpreted as saying, oh, worse than becoming a murderer is to become a pratyekabuddha. It's like, what? So again, Kyoba Rinpoche is always like, wait, that's like, you're not understanding then, How can you attribute the Buddha teaching anything that can be so mistaken, fundamentally unsound, that kind of thinking, fundamentally not sound. .416. So now he has dealt with these two statements with these attitudes towards Shravaka and Pratyekabuddha levels of attainment, which is for him, which is to say, no, they are all, along this path of final awakening. Yeah. Then now he will address within Mahayana traditions. So again, generally speaking, according to the system developed in Nalanda, they say that Mahayana is basically Cittamatra and Madhyamaka, the mind-only philosophical position and the middle way philosophical position. And indeed, there were people who kind of identify themselves like, I'm a follower of this system, or I'm a follower of that system. But again, Jigten Sumgun wants to redefine these terms of engagement, you could say, terms of debate, and say, yeah, you all can debate all of that, but, let's focus on the take-home lesson, so to say. So here, people claim that one is unable to realize true reality through the view of Cittamatra. So yeah, so who are these people? These are people who identify themselves probably as Madhyamaka, the middle way people, followers of Nagarjuna. Again, in their enthusiasm, to show the superiority of Nagarjuna's middle way, they end up making statements like, the Cittamatra people, they cannot realize true reality. They are misguided. But Kyoba Rinpoche says, Cittamatra reaches as far as the realization of the seventh stage. So meaning that, so Cittamatra, mind only. Briefly, there is some misunderstanding with regards to what they believe, what it's really saying. So especially the Madhyamaka people will say, the problem with Cittamatra, according to the Madhyamaka people, is that they say, whereas they will agree that all experiences, all appearances, all phenomena are empty, are interdependently arising. Empty also means interdependently arising. So they say, whereas all the objects are empty, interdependently arising, all of that, which in agreement with the middle way school people. But middle way school people say, but the Cittamatra people don't extend this principle of emptiness to the subject, to the mind that is perceiving these empty phenomena. There's a tendency to say this about Cittamatra because their name says mind only. So almost a caricature of Cittamatra is that the Cittamatra people will say, everything that is experienced is not real, but the one that is experiencing the mind, oh, that is real. Okay? But actually, I don't think Cittamatra people believe that. I would say this is just a caricature. It's kind of like misrepresenting what the Cittamatra people are saying. Even the philosophical tradition, for now, no need to even look at how Jigten Sungpan wants to point to how this is a stage of development in each of us. This is not about some label, some club that you join and say, oh, I sign up for the Cittamatra club. So now I have to defend Cittamatra view. So lay aside even that issue. Even if you're talking about the club called Cittamatra, it's mostly kind of misrepresentation that they believe that mind is real. But what the mind perceives is not real. That's not what they're saying. When they say mind only, they are saying it's more complex than this. Again, in the scholastic tradition, they get into really very abstract and complex details. But generally, what Cittamatra is saying is all that we experience, what we call sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and concepts, thoughts, they're all experienced via mind. That's all they're saying. In fact, the Buddha said that in the Dhammapada. The very opening verse of the Dhammapada already, Buddha said, all states of mind, all states of experiences are determined by mind. When the mind is obscured, then we experience suffering. All states, all phenomena are determined by mind. When this mind is free from obscuration, then we experience happiness. Are we going to say, oh, Buddha thinks mind is real? No, Buddha did not say mind is real. Buddha just says, understand that everything, even your idea that, oh, I'm tired of samsara, I want nirvana. What's that? That's based on mind. That's what, Cittamatra is saying. Of course, the Madhyamaka people want to force them into a position that they themselves would not go. Oh, mind is real. I don't think you will find in Cittamatra saying mind is real. So anyway, Chodak's commentary. The view of the Mahayana Cittamatra, the absolute that is empty of subject and object, is not the sphere of the sravakas. So here, Chodak says, the sravakas, their realization is not as profound as the seventh level of bodhisattva, which is the absolute that is empty of subject and object. Therefore, as previously mentioned, it reaches farther, as in Cittamatra goes further than what sravakas and pratyekabuddhas realize. Thus, if you realize all phenomena as mind, it is like a reduction of the necessary accumulation by many eons, because you are skilled with regard to means, like the great merciful leader and the Brahman Jyotis. So now we go back to the story of the Captain Compassion and the Brahman Jyotis. One relates to the precept or the vow against killing. The other one relates to the precept of celibacy. Yeah. So here it says, when you actually realize this level of mind only, then you can reduce, this is what it's talking about, reduction of the necessary accumulation, meaning, so this is referring to the path of accumulation. Although it's called the path of accumulation, it also includes the level where you're accumulating merit and you're purifying, you're wiping away the negative karma and the kleshas. So during that part of your journey to Buddhahood, before you achieve the level of the seventh level of bodhisattvas, whereby you understand subject and object is not two things, but it's the mind. Whatever the mind projects, that the mind experiences, and then it goes into this kind of, you could say, a loop, The mind projects, then the mind experiences its projections, then it feeds information back to the mind, which further projects, which then feeds information back to the mind, and so you're in this loop. Not seeing that this is how confusion works, not seeing how this is how it works, then we have no capacity to do what Captain Compassion did and the Brahman Jyotis did. So then we still need to work on it for a long, long time. But if we have arrived at the seventh stage, what we truly understand, truly realize that this is how experiences turn up. It turns up as a projection of the mind, which in turn feeds the confusion, which further projects more, which then feeds the confusion, which further projects more. When you understand thoroughly this is how it works, then you can have great courage, like Captain Compassion. So there's a quote from this text called Yeshe Geba, like an illusionist, like a magician, who is completely unstained by any fault with regard to the virtuous and non-virtuous formations, meaning concepts. Within the illusion he has created, one practices through skill with regards to means. This is truly when skillful means can begin to enter our sphere of activity. There, the sufferings of hell caused by the bodhisattva himself are easily endured and do not impair him or his altruistic mind. Therefore, the great compassionate one does not abandon the opponent who engages in unbearable acts. Such ability reflects the realization of the seventh stage and arises from the realization of the Cittamatra view. So yes, elsewhere it is said that Captain Compassion is not a good example of skillful means, right? You might remember that. But it is not saying that he doesn't have skillful means. He does. If he doesn't have skillful means, yeah, when he was reborn in the hell realms, his suffering would overwhelm him and will make him regret. Oh, I shouldn't have killed that murderer. Because in any case, it's not my karma. If he wants to kill 500 bodhisattvas, that's his business. And me, I did a good deed and now I'm burning in hell. Oh, forget about it. I'm not going to do this. Terrible. I made a wrong choice. If he did not have, it says here, if it did not have this seventh stage, if it did not achieve already the seventh stage of bodhisattvas, then this is what would have happened. But because he have achieved the seventh stage, then even though after that life he was reborn in the hell realms, you could say in a way, it was a breeze in that sense. Again, Drigong tradition wants to say, don't take that lightly, okay? Don't think that you can do that. Us, a little bit of setback, to Dharma practice, we're like, oh, something is wrong. Oh, I shouldn't have done that practice. I can't sleep now. Oh my God. And then when we hear stories about, oh, the bodhisattva went to hell, you're like, yes, I'm going to be like that. The reality is, even doing prostration, sometimes I'm like, oh, I injured my hand. Oh, I cannot do anymore. Oh, this is not the right practice for me. I need to look for something else. How, limited our ability is, The fifth chapter of the Lankavatara Sutra that deals with whether the Sugata is permanent or not says, where there is only the mind, Cittamatra, that is the seventh stage. Without appearances in the meditative state, that is the eighth. The two stages, 9 and 10, are such that subtle appearances remain in the non-meditative state. The 10th is great gnosis. These are my stages. So Jodha here is showing us how in the Lankavatara Sutra, when the Buddha talks about these things, he is not talking about schools of philosophy, obviously, because these schools came after him. Here he's talking about levels of realization. So this is a good example of Kyoba Rinpoche taking things back to, don't get caught up in these identity politics, so to say. Don't get caught up in identity debates. Right? Oh, I'm in this school, you're that school, my school is superior to your school, our understanding is superior to our understanding. Say, no. Cittamatra, the real meaning of Cittamatra is the realization that arises when you're on the seventh bodhisattva stage. On the eighth bodhisattva stage, when you are absorbed in the meditative concentration, in the faultless meditative concentration, even appearances don't arise anymore. Then, according to the Lankavatara, then in the 9th and the 10th, during meditative state, appearances don't arise anymore. Subtle appearances. So on the 8th, subtle appearances may arise. But on the 9th and 10th, even subtle appearances don't arise anymore. But they do arise in the post-meditative state. Meaning when this great bodhisattva gets up for this meditative state, subtle mistaken appearances still appear. They appear, but they don't affect the bodhisattva on the 9th and the 10th, because the bodhisattva on the 9th and 10th actually can see that, and then in the next moment understand this is deceptive. In two different moments of mind. So if you attended last night's class, this is some of the details from last night, when Tsongkhapa says, if they arise one after another, you're not there yet. But if they arise, simultaneously, meaning realization of emptiness and realization of dependent origination. If they realize one after another, you're not there yet. This is some of the details that I didn't want to talk about yesterday, because it's very, it can turn into very abstract. But this is what's going on. This is what's the meaning of, if they arise one after another. So meaning, while remaining in meditative, like unshakable, faultless meditative concentration of bodhisattvas of the 8th, 9th, and 10th bhumi, then at that point, emptiness is the object. Then when you arise from that meditative state, you will see dependent origination. So that's two different moments. Only on the 11th stage of Buddha, where these two arise together in the same moment. This is a very refined. And so here, Chodra summarized by saying, so this mind only, which the Cittamatra people subscribe to, is not something that is an error. It's a level of Buddha's bodhisattva's progress. And so in Sobish's notes, he goes into how, why certain people say this, certain people say that. So again, if you are interested in these issues, it's very interesting. You can read that. So how the Madhyamikas refute the Cittamatra view and say why the Cittamatra is wrong. One thing here in Sobish's, so this is related to the merciful captain. It says, however, in his explanation, Chögyam says that the suffering of hell is easily endured by Captain Compassion due to him having realized this mind only, which is the seventh bodhisattva stage. But why would he be born in hell in the first place if he were, quote, completely unstained by any fault? Yeah? Completely unstained by any fault. Because Chodra quotes, right, Yeshe Gepa, that says, like an illusionist who is completely unstained by any fault. So then you might say to Chodra, hey, you quoted that, okay? So are you saying that, Captain Compassion, because he has achieved 7th stage, therefore, when he did what he did, with this quote, you seem to suggest that he is unstained by any fault. But then if he is unstained by any fault, why was he born in the hell? Yeah, Sobish is raising this question, which is a good question. When I was reading that, I thought, this quote, hey, Chodra, this quote doesn't serve you very well. This Yeshe Gepa quote, doesn't serve you very well. It might undermine what you have been trying to say, So Sobish says, the only solution that I can see here is that the line unstained by any fault is taken not as referring to the karmic result of being born in hell, but to the fact that he is not negatively affected by the experience of hell. Understood like that, the illusionist creates through his acts the illusion of hell and its denizens, but due to his realization of phenomena being only mind on the 7th bodhisattva stage, he remains unstained by any suffering afflicted upon him by these formations. The creation of the illusion of hell and its denizens was caused by the actual stabbing of the assassin by the merciful leader that necessitated a moment of aversion. So for Captain Compassion and that life afterwards where he's born in the hell realm, his experience of hell is illusory. You and me, if we were to go murder someone for way less good reasons, the hell that we are going to experience is also illusory. Because all experiences are illusory. But we will be stained by that experience. Whereas Captain Compassion wasn't stained. Stained in what sense? Stained in the sense of we would have regretted that action. We would have given up our bodhicitta and rejected it. But the Captain Compassion, the merciful leader, did not. Instead, he made great progress by doing that. Choices have consequences. It's not a choice if, you're told, oh, don't worry, you'll be fine. So we will look at 417 on Monday. Remember, we're not meeting this Friday, but we will meet following this coming Monday. Any questions, comments?
Well, it seems to me that this way of seeing karma, negative karma ripening, does not convey the sense that negative karma is punishment.
Yes, yeah, which is fundamental, you know. I think we intellectually, maybe we understand that. Emotionally, we still relate to karma as punishment. Karma is not about punishment and rewards, you know. We're so ingrained in that theistic view, you know. And of course, you know, I think developmentally, from a modern perspective, so to say, developmentally, how did that theistic view get reinforced? It got reinforced by our parents. Rewards and punishment, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. I started watching, you know, Danish TV series. I don't even know the name of the series. It's in Danish, so it's very hard to remember. But it's about maybe some of you know. It's about the story revolves around a priest and his family, and their family has been Lutheran priests for 200 years, you know. So now this older priest and then one of his sons is following in the footsteps, being a priest. Another son is like the prodigal son, the troublemaker, you know, that disappoints the father, blah, blah, blah. But interestingly, at the beginning of many of the episodes, there is a quote that comes on the screen, right? During the kind of the beginning of, you know, the music comes on, and then right before the episode starts, there is a quote that comes on the screen. And I don't know if every episode has this. I've only watched like a few episodes, but the last two episodes I noticed the quotes are always attributed to the Buddha. Yeah. So there was a part of me that was going to recommend this series to a friend. Then I thought, no, you know, the friend might think that I'm suggesting that the Buddha, you know, is superior to these Lutherans. It's not what I'm trying to. I thought, you know, this Lutheran family story, you know, would be of interest. But anyway, one of the quotes, it says, you are not. So again, this vocabulary is a little off based on our Gongchik understanding, right? But anyway, the point is made is this. It says, you are not, so it's supposedly a quote from the Buddha, although I kind of suspect this quote has been massaged for modern ears. It says, you are not punished for being angry, but you are punished by your anger. Yeah. So that, you know, expresses, I think, very well that from the Buddhist perspective, anger is not going to be punished by something else. Anger itself is suffering. That's at the root of the Buddha's teachings about karma. It's not that, you know, you'll be punished or rewarded. by this mental state or that mental state. But the mental states themselves are the manifestation of happiness and suffering.
And that's the feedback loop that creates more anger, more suffering, more actions.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And that we get stuck in. More and more, I think these days, anger is the most kind of obvious suffering that we all have. Some of this anger is very quiet, but it's nonetheless anger. We're angry, we're disappointed with the world, with our life, with the pandemic. Then we pick up other people's anger. Whether quietly or loudly, we're all very angry. Buddha says, you have to give up this anger. In this series, the brother that followed in the father's footstep, in a moment of anger, in response to the brother who did not follow is actually the older brother, but the story is that the older brother actually went to Nepal, and have some kind of experience there, and came back kind of changed. And so when these two brothers got together, the younger brother is undergoing, I don't want to spoil in case you're going to watch this. His younger brother is, struggling through some stuff. And the older brother kind of, said to him, like, this anger, it's really like torturing you, And then the younger brother said, what are you, Buddhist now? And he says, Buddhists have no ambition. Like as an insult, like Buddhists have no backbone. So in a way, it's like, it's easy, to think that relinquishing anger means not having backbone anymore. It's easy to think like that, So sometimes we think, oh, I have to feel angry. Also, there's a lot of things you can read, in Facebook or whatever, Unfortunately, instead of reading the Bible, instead of reading the Buddha's text, we read Facebook, trying to get wisdom, Things like, anger is what will stir you to do great things and this and that. It's like, that sounds really poetic. That sounds really nice, Just be careful. So people will say, like in United States history and politics, like, Martin Luther King, was angry. And so then he made all those changes, and these, great changes happened because, someone got fed up and angry and yeah, sure, but, but be careful, how much we have destroyed our happiness and others' happiness because of anger. Whether it's the quiet one type or the loud type, is eating us out, Dying slowly, dying quickly, but dying of anger. Then less subtle than anger is, of course, attachment. And in some ways, this anger is the result of attachment. Because attachment is desire, attachment. And when desire, when goals are frustrated, cannot be met, then we respond with anger, frustration. So now, that brother can say, see, I told you, Buddhists have no ambition. So then the talk of, not having expectations, not having desire, that's like just, that is so, no backbone. But no, actually, Buddha says, we have to redirect our desire and ask ourselves, what do we really desire? Oh, then from the Buddha nature perspective, we all desire happiness. If we don't know how this happiness can be reached, then we will always suffer. But if we know how this desire can be fulfilled, and we train ourselves to act accordingly, then it need not be frustration. It need not therefore give rise to anger. So then, desire, as in the negative kind of desire, the desire that causes anger, is the result of confusion, not seeing clearly. And so this is how the three poisons. So the root of the three poisons is this, the obscuration of kleshas, as the Vajra statement says. The fundamental obscuration, confusion or ignorance, or Sobish translates as cognitive misperception, misorientation. Yeah, so anyway, it's in the US, it's Thanksgiving season. So happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Very thankful that we are able to spend this 3 times a week studying the Gongchik. So we should know that we are fortunate ones. And not,
Guru,
yes.
sorry, before we end, I just want to ask a few things on this statement. At the start of Gongchik, I remember that we said that the concept of emptiness was taught as a cure for those who are attached to the mind only.
Yes, yeah, you could say that, sure.
So, and then coming back, also another statement where in the
So that's why the next statement in Gongchik is going to say, then to go beyond the 7th bhumi, to arrive at the 8th bhumi, you need to understand emptiness.
No, then in the Theravada system also, I remember there's a saying that where the Buddha told Ananda that karma is a very complicated subject and only a Sammasambuddha will be able to comprehend the entire system of karma. So it seems that this confusion in regards to Captain Courageous, where it said that if Captain Courageous has the Cittamatra point of view, just like the illusionist mentioned in the text, to me it seems that the confusion arises not because of, or should I say the confusion seems to arise because we try to categorize or try to fit this situation into one category. That means, for example, I'm saying that we say that the Captain Courageous at this point, where he did his deed and then was reborn in hell, at this point he was in the 7th Bhumi.
Mm-hmm.
And because he is 7th Bhumi, blah, 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 blah. But that is because from our point of understanding where we are not, where we still have our kilesas, we are not seeing fully yet. And we are trying to categorize according to our way of seeing, our understanding.
Categorize what?
As in, if someone, let me put it in a simple way, like in the Theravada system, we say that, okay, if you are Sotapan, you're not attached to rituals, but you still have certain kilesas. When you are Anagami, you have certain kilesas. So in the same way, we are talking about beings of these different bhumis. We try to say that, if you have only remaining this type of view, you belong to this bhumi. And when you progress to this bhumi, you drop this view, you have only this view remaining.
Yes.
But that is to say that coming from our way of looking at things, we are trying to understand it from where we are standing right now, rather than like a Sama Sambuddhas looking everything from the top, seeing everything clearly.
Yes.
So that's why to me, this confusion arises. Like,
what confusion? You keep referring to this confusion. What confusion?
Okay, like Sobish said that Captain Courageous, if he has the Cittamatra point of view and realize emptiness, he should not be in hell. He should not be reborn in hell because
no. That's not what Sobish said.
Sorry. No. Wait, let me get my thoughts together. Okay. Sobish say that the statement given, just like an illusionist, you create the whole play, but you are not involved in that illusion because you know that it's not real. It's created from your mind.
Yes. So Chodra quotes that. Yes.
Okay. But Sobish corrected that because he said that.
Not corrected. Sobish says, you could say, if that quote might seem to suggest that Captain Compassion therefore should not be born in the hell realm.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. Next.
So at that point, therefore, to him who is in hell at that moment, technically it's not real. To Captain Courageous. If following the first statement, being reborn in hell is not something that he actually need to go through because he realized that there's no such thing as hell.
No. You cannot say that. Yeah, no, you cannot say that. He knows he will be born in the hell realm for that action. He knows that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so he did that.
Okay.
That's an important point. This is where the Gongchik explanation is powerful. He knows that.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes, he knows that.
Yeah, I think I'm the one confused right now.
Possibly.
Dr. Lai.
Yes.
All systems of tenets obscure the truth.
Yes, all systems of tenets obscure the truth. But it doesn't mean, that we cannot, understand what the Gongchik is saying. Yes, so from the Gongchik perspective, no, it's not that Captain Compassion says, you know what, I'm at the 7th stage. Therefore, you all think I'm going to hell, but I'm not. I'm going on vacation. No, no, no. He said, oh no, yes, this is going to lead me to the hell realms. But I will endure it. Because this has to be done. Why? Because I don't want to see this person suffer the karma of killing 500 bodhisattvas. I don't want the 500 bodhisattvas, their lives to be cut short. So I'm going to do it. So then it is said, you know, he was born in the hell realm. I mean, this is, stories are being told, right? I mean, we don't know exactly, you know, was he or was he not born in the hell realm? Because there are other ways of telling this story, you know, like those Sakya Pandita will tell this story as, you know, oh no, and you can read, I think Batu Rinpoche or somewhere, you know, talk about how that this, then he was born in the hell realm from a split second, and then poof, he jumped out. Other traditions tell the story that way. But in this tradition, we say, no, no. And so at the end, you know, it's not the story themselves. It's like how the story is told tells us, right, the take-home lesson. So how the story is told here is, you know, that, as I said, you know, my killing of a person for completely selfish reasons and Captain Compassion's killing of the person for for selfless reasons, they both will result in rebirth in the hell realms. They both will result in rebirth in the hell realms. And insofar as that rebirth in the hell realm, in both cases, they are illusory because the nature of phenomena is illusory. But when I don't get the illusory part, then I suffer more. If I get the illusory part, then I can suffer less. So forget about temporarily forget about the example of hell, because that seems so overwhelming. But apply it to just this ordinary reality that we are in now. The more we are able to see, you know, that whatever unhappiness that I'm experiencing right now, its nature is empty and it's illusory. Yes, you know, yes, it's not like the IRS, you know, wanting 400,000 from me has gone away. It's still there, but like hell is still there. But I'm not dealing with it like a, you know, headless chicken running around. But I understand that it's illusory. And so then I have a little bit more freedom. Do you still need to talk to, you know, different people and, you know, file the different papers and all of that? Yeah, because it's not illusory as in if I ignore it, it'll go away. You know, that's not how you get rid of illusions. You know, if I ignore it, it'll go away. That's how you let the illusion grow more and more real. Changchu Semcho Rinpoche Magye Banan Ge Gyurche Ge Ba Nyam Ba Me Ba Yang Gong Ne Gong Du Be War Shu.
Gracias.
Ta-ta, ta-ta, ta-ta.
Thanksgiving.
Gracias.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Gracias.